Yo, what's up guys? This is Oakley and I'm going to be doing another online battle, and yeah, I figured I'd stock up on a couple of these. I'm going out this weekend, going up to SF, gonna party a bit. We have a long weekend. I hope you guys are having your own long weekend, that you're able to enjoy it. We have a lot of fun stuff on the agenda. Gonna go like ATVing in the dunes and stuff like that, paintballing, so it's gonna be a nice break. I figured before I headed off and did all that stuff though, I'd at least record a couple games to send out to you guys in case you have some downtime, you wanted to watch some Total War. Anyways, I'm gonna be playing as Suebi, and admittedly I haven't really played too many games as Suebi. I don't know why. Like, I've seen some players play as Suebi in the tournaments. I think the reason probably is because Suebi well, it's obviously a barbarian faction, so they're mostly dealing with kind of brute force, and that's kind of not what I like to do with my tactics. As you've seen in my videos, I like to finesse and do a lot of work dancing around with maneuvering, but I've actually found that if you're able to use this brute force army and use it with finesse, it can actually work really well. So I've played around a couple matches with them, and here my opponent is Rome. So it looks like he's deployed on the low ground. Looks like he didn't want to fight on the hill. I didn't want to either, but I deployed here because I thought my opponent would. So, we should have probably communicated that beforehand and had like a gentleman's agreement to go to the right. But because there's no communication, I see his main army is there, but I'm not going to be foolhardy enough to turn completely to face him. He may actually have a flanking force moving up the hill, so it's best for me actually to go and clear out the hill first, make sure there's no one there, and then turn about and face him. Anyways, my composition is going to have a lot of different types of units. I'm going to have basically two of these longbow hunters, because I always like to bring skirmishers in my armies. Even though you find that most people don't like to bring skirmishers, especially in tournaments, I think they're invaluable. I think that they can give you a positional advantage, they can make your enemy react to you, and they just have a lot of advantages if microed correctly. Anyways, I brought two of those guys, then I have four of those swordmasters, three berserkers, two Wodenized spears, two of the Germanic scout riders, two of those noble riders, and then two kind of crap levy infantry. The levy infantry are there to be kind of meat shields. Anyways, these forces have scattered around the top, and they basically don't see anyone. And I know he doesn't have more forces hiding in the woods past them because they're still on the, they're still hidden. Whereas if he had hidden units there, it would tell me that my own units were revealed, thus telling me that he has units in the vicinity. So it's kind of a weird way that the line of sight can work. It kind of allows you to scout your opponent based off whether or not your guys are visible or not. So anyways, that's a little thing I wanted to tell you. So what I'm trying to do is start positioning. I'm going to move through this front. My opponent is looking like he's moving up in group command, so he's going to be reforming and facing off against me. It looks like he's going to be making a push for these woods, so I'm going to just try and reposition my forces here. If anything, I'll have the higher ground, and I have these hidden cavalry behind the hill now that he hasn't seen, as well as some cavalry over here on the left, which you always see me do in every battle, is have some hidden units. There's no reason not to. As you saw in a previous battle, even though my opponent knew that I had hidden forces, it still caught him by surprise when I revealed them. So keep hidden forces, even if you're just going to pull them out and put them in your main army. You might as well, because in the off chance that your opponent does a mistake, then you can obviously go ahead and exploit that. So right here, what I'm trying to do is push on the right with my cavalry, try and get his attention focused there, and then I'm going to charge with some more cavalry right here, with the hopes of catching his slingers unawares. So he's kind of caught in a panic, so these guys are moving in on two fronts. My opponent is kind of like a swarming bee's nest that's been disturbed. So now I'm going to pull this cavalry in the front away. They're just doing the screening, and you can see right there the natural move of my opponent is to move his skirmishers behind his line, but that's why I move these guys around the flank. So I'm going to try and charge in, but he has too many units in the near vicinity, so I'm going to pull out a little bit, let my guys throw their spears, and just keep moving like that. You can see I'm even dodging some of the spears he's thrown. I'm going to engage with those guys there, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty good engagement. His guys are scattered, and my opponent is caught unawares. Also, some of his guys there were revealed, so I'm going to start moving my forces up. You can see my longbow hunters are actually a little bit too exposed, so I'm going to pull them back in case his cavalry decides to charge in. You can see he's going to pull his gladiators back, and they're going to try and engage in that melee. You'll also note that my two cavalry units that are doing this whole attack right here are going to be my worst cavalry units. I just need them to strike. I don't need my best units getting tangled in case they get lost or stuck like those units there. I'm more, it's probably smarter for me to use disposable cavalry units in this case as opposed to my best units. They're just there to do an initial strike on his skirmishers, create some confusion, and allow me to move up. So that's why in those situations I would say don't use your best cav units. Anyways, what I'm doing right here is going to start moving up My longbowmen, they have good range. My opponent does not have a very good range advantage. He does have slingers, but if I'm able to keep them moving around with my own cavalry, then he's not going to be able to do anything. You can see this is going to be a very, very close call right here. His cavalry are trying to engage with my men, but I'm just close enough that, look at this, he's within basically 2 feet of my men and he decides to disengage. You can see you really have to be on top of your micro when that kind of stuff happens, and my opponent, I think, was smart enough not to engage me. He would have, yes, knocked out one of those guys, but at the loss of some of his units anyways, being entangled in my forces right here. So good move on my opponent. One of the things that's happened is my isolated unit here has become, obviously isolated. One of the benefits of having these Germanic scout riders is they have some good speed to them, so I can outrun his cavalry, or at least keep them at a safe distance. And basically I'm going to be drawing his cavalry off and trying to save those, so I'm going to keep pulling them towards the edge of the map. And what I'm going to be doing is trying to reinforce with some more infantry units. I'm debating charging those guys, but I think I can outrun them. So these guys are going to be coming to the rescue. These cavalry are going to move around back to try and bait his cavalry to fall back. And then I'm going to tell my archers to target his spearmen or his gladiators, because they're the weakest armored units. And look at this, he's trying to intercept. I'm just going to thread the gap and go right for the back lines of his army, and also reunite with my cavalry there. So that's kind of a sick move that you can try and pull if you have faster cavalry units. Gonna move my forces up, and my opponent is not really sure what to do. He's caught on an open field here, which is nice, but I do have I'm starting at least to get this round on him. What I would do if I were my opponent is I would try and get my try and match the width of my formation and get his slingers in the middle of his army and start focus firing on piecemeal unit by unit. And don't even worry about my cavalry in the back. Just keep his own spearmen in the back so that I can't recharge him. And then that's fine. If he keeps his Balearic slingers in the midst of his main infantry line, there's no way I can charge in there and not take heavy losses. So that's kind of a tip I would give to my opponent anyways. What I'm going to do is try and exploit the fact that I have more cavalry units, so I'm going to try and move around and try and push one flank. I'm going to try and use my longbowmen most effectively against his gladiators. I think that's going to be the best way to do that. Going to keep moving these guys off, and you can see I've kind of quartered him into this side of the map. It was his fault for coming down here. I think it's more of a fair fight on this even terrain, but it's going to give me the advantage in being able to corner him. What he's trying to do is push up here. This is exactly what you want to do, push up and try and force one wing back. But in my case, what you want to do then is just pull back and keep engaging with another part of your army. And you can see exactly why I targeted these gladiators. They're going to start falling very, very quickly. And those guys have crazy attacks, so you definitely want to bring units that can counter them. And what I think can effectively counter them is going to be missile units. You just got to go ahead and target those guys, and you should be good. I know a lot of people complain about those guys having ridiculous attack, but at the same time they have low armor. So you just got to make sure that you're using the appropriate counters to potential Roman builds. And I would say most Romans that you're going to see are going to have urban cohorts, so heavy infantry, which I think you can match with the barbarian berserkers. They're going to bring gladiators, so make sure you bring some form of missile unit in order to combat those. And then they're going to bring Praetorian cavalry or other sorts of cavalry that are very strong. So bring a couple of your own. Bring one or two of their Germanic scout riders, because they are good in melee. They do well, but at the same time they're quick, they're agile, they can land those strikes on slingers in case your opponent goes for that sort of build. You can see right here I'm dangerously close of charging my berserkers into the line of fire of his Balearic slingers. If he had turned around and shot me, he would have done a lot of damage to them. So that's why I charged in this cavalry unit, to try and keep him from doing that. I'm not really expecting to land a strike on his slingers, but what I am doing is forcing them back, allowing my berserkers to fall back. And yeah, what I'm doing also is charging in one of my meat shields on the right. You can see them moving forward. Basically what I'm going to try and do is expend his Pilla, make him target those guys, make him engage in combat. What I did stupidly is leave these guys out here, and you can just see what kind of machine guns those Balearic slingers do have. They took out most of my unit, so that's going to prompt me to go ahead and engage in the charge. Usually with the Roman army, I mean with barbarians you can take them head on, but I'm going to do as much as possible to get around the flanks, so I'm going to make sure I do that. I'm going to charge in with one of these crap units, and you can see why I'm engaging my berserkers on the right is because my swordmasters are going to be holding the center. They're basically going to be posing enough of a threat that he's not going to want to charge the center and not turnabout. And that's going to allow these concentrated units of like striking power on the right side, which are my berserkers, to kind of hammer his right side. So it's kind of like a right hook is what I'm trying to say, where I'm overpowering my right side. That'll smash his flank. If he tries to pull off any of his center units, well then I can charge in with the massive horde of barbarians in the center. So that's kind of my thinking behind this. Is to start peeling off units, and you can see how I keep my center fixed and move the flanks. My cavalry unit right there is just trying to cause as much chaos as possible. I don't really care that they get killed. They're just there for disruption. You can see because he's disrupting his Balearic slingers, they're not going to be able to shoot at my guys here, whereas I'm going to keep shooting at his guys here. Still, we're targeting those gladiators, doing a lot of damage, and you know, there's not much he can do at this point besides, I would say, pull back, reform, and try and get his slingers to do more damage. Right here, I'm going to charge in my berserkers into this melee fight. You know, I think on a one-on-one we should be good, so I'm going to keep these guys back. These guys are going to try, and I don't know why I engaged that ability, but they're going to try and basically keep his units from moving to reinforce. I'm going to move these guys to help those guys in the flank. Then I'm going to charge forward with these units here, and over on the right I'm going to try and engage more of my berserkers in a moment. I'm going to move these guys forward, moving my archers back just so they're not engaged by any hidden surprises, and then they're going to turn around and start attacking at his reserve units. You can see right here, my berserkers are going to move around the flank. My general is going to pop his abilities, basically all of them, and these berserkers are going to go ahead and engage his gladiators. So you can see the holding action in the center, flanking on the side to pin his forces, and right here I'm going to go ahead and charge, surround his units. You can see he's going to go for my skirmishers. That's probably fine. I'm just going to go ahead and chase. He decides my skirmishers aren't worth it. He's going to turn around and try to hammer and anvil me. That's fine. He's charging spear units that have pretty good morale, so I'm going to go ahead and get a rear charge on him. Meanwhile, these cavalry are going to be able to charge into this mess, and you can just see how there's a lot of the Roman units are wavering. That's because I was able to get the berserkers in on them first, who have pretty crazy stats, and then I have more units reinforcing, and just the overall tide of battle is going to just flow right into my hands, and I have more units in his rear. There's not much he can do about that. I can just rear charge to my heart's content, and you can just see how all his units crumble. Even though he had the best troops he could have, you can see they're basically no match to a force like this when you engage them appropriately. So that's how I would say you should use these barbarian forces, the Suebi forces. They're definitely very, very strong. They have a lot of counters to them. I would say probably a mobile cataphract horse archer build could do well against them, or spears. But anyways, that's my take on how to use Suebi. So I hope you enjoyed. See you next time.